Here you go. Got us some drinks. Kopi Siu Thai. Yours is Teh O. Mine is Kopi O.
Hello, folks. Glad you could join us for this episode of Deep Dive. If you're watching us on YouTube, you'll realize that we are out of the office for sure this time, right,
That's
Steve?
right. We've left our basement, come out to a hawker center, Senja Hawker Center. I gotta admit, this is my first time here.
I've never heard of it until
Yeah.
I've
Anyway,
been here.
what better person to host us?
Welcome to the world of
There
hawker
you go.
centers.
That's right,
This
Minister.
is our
Minister.
bread and butter work,
Yeah,
Minister Grace
okay.
Fu, of course, the Sustainability and Environment Minister. So, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Now, we're recording at this hawker center because one of the key moves at the budget is to support our hawkers. A huge sum,
Yeah.
$1 billion, is being planned for long-term support of our hawkers. So, before we start though, we wanted to ask her, we were looking at MSE portfolio and we were thinking you must be really busy.
Something from very near term, like a hawker center,
Yeah.
to something
Sure.
that's very long term, like coastal protection.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we
that's right.
covered
So,
it all. Yeah.
Climate change. I
Climate
mean,
change.
Floods.
we did about floods.
Rats.
Did about rats.
Toilets.
You know.
But that's how we interact with the environment, right? There's some
That is
issues
true.
that's very, very current,
Mhm.
like the food that we eat today,
Yeah.
versus something that affects us in the long run.
So after, especially you travel for a bit, you go away. When you come home, what is your go-to meal?
Actually, kopi siu Thai I missed
Oh, really?
a lot.
That's- okay.
Because after a few days of espresso, this is what I miss, that buttery
Really?
flavor that's
Okay.
very local. You can't find it anywhere else.
Right.
Right? So I like
Mm.
this.
Okay.
And chai tao
Food-wise?
kueh,
Chai
carrot
tao kueh.
cake,
Carrot cake.
Carrot cake.
black and white.
But you're
I
very
like both.
fit, right? You run, you do yoga.
Yeah.
So,
That's why I can enjoy my carrot cake.
Oh, both black and white. No.
No, black is my favorite.
Yeah.
Steve, what's your favorite?
Oh, I have so many. I like Hokkien mee, bak chor mee,
Yes.
mee goreng, nasi goreng, roti prata.
Yeah.
I could go on. It just depends on what I feel like that day,
Exactly. So when I'm away, the first thing I want to eat is bak chor mee.
Okay.
So that's very Singaporean, right?
Exactly.
Sometimes the moment you landed in Changi Airport, you will go for bak chor mee or something
Exactly.
Yeah.
before you go back. It's
Somehow-
very it's our culture, it's our
That's right.
hawker identity.
Like reset our taste buds, after all that foreign food.
Kopi siu Thai.
Okay, let's get started.
Yeah.
Okay, so we start with the upgrade, right? The amount that is being set aside
Mm-hmm.
for existing centers as well as building new ones. Now, this is very long-term planning. It spans decades, right? So people look at 1 billion and they think, wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Actually, it's 20, 30 years down the road.
Yeah.
What, in your view, is the best kind of hawker center experience?
The best hawker center is one that's relevant to the people, where people around it will embrace it, will come and find it convenient and
Okay.
find it relevant.
Yep.
So if you look at this particular hawker center, this is a relatively newer one.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can see there's very high ceiling.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And it has some of these big fans that
Yep.
makes ventilation really very comfortable
That's
for
right.
people. And some of the stalls, the way that it's set up, and enable them to, adopt some technology, enable to put their things.
Yep.
It's really both relevant to the customers as well as the operator.
Okay.
And you see some features such as centralized collection points,
Okay.
Yep.
where it's easy for them to outsource cleaning
yeah.
to a company, because many of them are getting on in
Yeah.
age. They can't be washing the dishes themselves. So we need some of these facilities to be relevant, to be updated and current.
Or make it easier, basically, for the hawkers to operate. Because if we think back to the old hawker centers,
Yep.
they had none of these facilities, right?
It's
Yep.
kind of low.
Yeah.
It's kind of hot. It's kind
Yeah.
of stuffy.
Cramped.
And even though we have been upgrading them, but the structure itself has a limitation.
Right.
Mm.
So we need to think about a better way to really make them more relevant, more future ready for the requirements.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're going to get higher temperature because of climate change.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
also extreme flooding, right? And like big thunderstorms. Sometimes the water comes in. So these kinds of things.
Absolutely. We
Yeah.
need to look at the level that is ready, and any crest level that's needed.
Yep.
Or even sometimes simple things like lift. Because
Okay.
if you have parents that are on wheelchair,
Yep.
they need accessibility to
Yes,
get to
that's
a
right.
hawker center.
And as we have an aging population, more people will
And
be
if
in
you
those
didn't build
circumstances.
in, the ramp, it's not
Yeah.
ready for lifts. It's
Okay,
very
okay.
hard.
So
to
all
do
those
that.
things are great, but then when it comes down to it, we all have a very basic necessity too, and that's wherever we go, we need to use the toilet.
Yes.
And that's
absolutely.
been a bugbear for many, right? You go to some hawker centers and some coffee shops especially, and you go and you're like, oh my gosh.
Better
You
not
know?
come here.
I'll hold it, I'm
Yeah.
going to go home and pee,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So we
Yeah.
take those annual survey of cleanliness of toilets quite seriously, and we find that actually not all public toilets have the same fate. In
Okay.
fact, we see some toilets in areas such as transport nodes, MRT stations, for
yeah.
example, it has been improving.
Yeah.
So actually, it tells us that it can be done, provided that we have a proper infrastructure, cleaning methods, as well as user education.
What do you think is the main problem? Because the ones that I've been to, usually they are quite bad. I mean, it can be coffee shops.
Where do you
that's
hang
true.
out?
So our survey
Yeah.
shows that actually
But-
the one that's sort of like at the bottom of all
Yeah.
surveys is actually coffee shop toilets.
Toilet.
Yeah.
Hawker centers are actually better and improving as well.
Okay.
Because you can see that we have a scale here, we have enough cleaners that can have someone that's sort of dedicated.
Okay.
Right.
Whereas if you have a small coffee shop, only maybe 4 or 5 stores, the number of cleaners are really not that many. Some
Right.
of them double up as, making your coffee.
Ah.
Not dedicated to cleaning the
Yeah.
toilets.
Yeah,
yeah,
That's
yeah.
where I think users and also infrastructure will come in.
Yeah.
Infrastructure what I mean is
The
that
way it's designed.
if you go, that's right. If you go to a toilet, sometimes you find that there's no proper place to place the
Your bag.
cleaning,
Or even,
the pail,
yeah.
the
Oh,
cleaner
okay.
detergents. Things
So
are just
everything
left
is dumped.
everywhere.
Mm.
That sometimes you want to put in a little bit, a few more of this toilet paper rolls,
Yeah.
Yep.
and you find that you don't have that, so you
Right.
see a few sort of hanging around.
Yeah.
It's just not made for
Yeah.
proper
I
heavy
feel
usage.
it's ventilation. That often bugs me a lot.
As well.
It goes the smell, and because you can look around and you know there are no windows, nothing.
Exactly. So this is all
It's the way it's
infrastructure.
built.
Right?
lah.
Yeah.
It's the
Okay.
infrastructure. So you can actually
Mm.
design better and
Yeah.
build better.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's also the cleaning regime. Do this cleaner actually know how to clean toilets, or actually he's just doubling up and doesn't really know
Right.
how to clean it properly?
Yeah, but you see, one of the comments that came up was that the coffee shop operators are usually private guys, right?
Yeah.
So they're already making money on their rents, etc. So shouldn't they step up and clean up their act, so to speak, rather than government says,
They have
"Come, I give you money."
No, they have a responsibility to do that. Absolutely. They
Mm.
have a responsibility, and we find that it's really unhygienic.
Yep.
They fail to maintain the toilets. We will enforce, in fact, we will suspend the operation.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we should also be fair to them, because if you look at coffee shop, you don't need to be a patron to use their toilets. Unlike in other places, I mean, if you are in New York or London, if
Yeah.
you don't patronize,
Right,
hey,
Yeah,
there's
that's
a big
the whole
sign that
Starbucks
says that.
toilet thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. So, but in Singapore, the coffee shop is open, and we all know that. If you're a uncle, auntie, you spend the whole morning in a coffee shop, whether you drink or
Okay.
not, you buy food or not, you go to use
Nobody
the
stops
toilets.
you from
Nobody
using
stop
it.
you.
Yep.
If you're playing soccer and you need
So,
to use the
okay,
toilets,
then,
you
then
go
why
there,
not? Why
right?
not make it treat it like a public toilet? Then in a way, government takes over and says we will manage it. We will.
Or charge.
Yeah, and then maybe I don't know. Yeah, 10
So
cents per
actually,
use.
we found actually we have coffee shop toilets.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
how can we help the operators to up their game so that
okay.
the users can benefit
Okay.
from a hygienic toilet?
Okay,
I
so
think that's where
Yeah.
we don't need to build purpose-built toilets.
Yep.
Then we need to hire, cleaners just for those.
Okay.
But we resource them, we help them, we train them so that they can do a job. So it's really trying to tilt that balance.
Right.
So that we
so
can-
you're saying that, I mean, their utility is being used by other people, members of the public, and
That's
therefore,
not customers.
Yeah.
They are non-customers.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So the
Okay.
money is really to help them support that.
Yes. yes.
Okay.
Okay.
After this, and who take over your business?
Next time, I don't know. Maybe my son don't know they want to do now.
Let's talk about hawker centers itself as
Yeah.
well. So one of the things that came up in some of our comments is that you can pump in a lot of money for infrastructure, but at the heart of good hawkering is the livelihoods of the hawkers themselves, right? And we always miss when our favorite hawker gives up and he says, "Look, I'm too old. I
Retiring,
can't.
closing shop.
No,
right?
my kids are not going to take
That's right.
after me." And then the Hokkien Mee dies with that guy, and it's
His
really
favourite food.
Yeah, I've lost a few Hokkien Mee stalls already.
It's
yes.
very sad,
Very sad,
It's,
right?
it's
Yeah.
very sad. So I mean, so aside from the infrastructure, this is the challenge, right? What have you seen
So
in
what
your
does that tell us,
experience.
right?
Yeah.
That tells us a few things actually. That actually the livelihood of hawkers is actually not what our young people would aspire to have.
Yeah.
Because our parents or grandparents went into that trade because that's the only thing that they know of.
Okay.
Yep.
But their children, their grandchildren are probably
Educated.
well educated,
Exactly.
and there's actually better livelihoods besides being a hawker. Secondly, I think we need to think about how to really treat our hawkers better. Is there a way for us to share a bit more with the food cost? I always think that, if you're prepared to pay $18-20 for pasta,
Yeah,
why are you not prepared to pay $5 for wonton mee?
Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
So sometimes we expect too much from our hawkers as well. Our hawkers find it's difficult to adjust their prices.
Okay.
So therein lies this sort of three parties that need to come around and have some social compact.
Right.
What is the role of the patrons?
Yeah.
What is the role of the government in providing facilities like this?
Right.
And what's the role of our hawkers in providing affordable, tasty, delicious food?
Right.
I think this has to come to equilibrium that's acceptable to all three parties.
Some customers, they want more but not willing to pay. So they also have to understand on our side, you see. There are nothing much. It's just to be fair to us, hawkers.
We always have this mentality that hawker food always has to be affordable. It's a mental.
But what do you mean by
mindset.
affordable?
Affordable,
Because life,
Yeah.
inflation, things get more expensive each year. But your $3.50 bowl of noodles, it still exists today. How many years later, right? Which
That's
to
not
me doesn't make
possible.
sense.
They actually don't raise their prices often. They don't raise
But their
it every
cost
year.
has gone up.
Their
right?
cost has gone up. So sometimes I think in the last 1-2 years, we do see them adjusting. But
Yeah.
hey, have they been adjusting throughout all the years, or they make an adjustments once every 5
Right.
years or once every 10 years?
And
Okay.
so we did a show on Talking Point for this. I followed a hawker for a day. I went to a Hae Mee store and I was with them from 5 a.m. until 9 p.m. Wow, I tell you.
It's hard work. It's really,
when you
really
sell
hard
that
work.
bowl for $3.50, you feel your heart sink. You're like, wow, I worked so hard and that's all
Yes,
the money I'm
exactly.
making.
So for the hawkers, I think they have a decision to make when they reach a certain age. Do I want to pass it to my children?
Yeah.
Do my children want to aspire to have the lives just like me?
Yep.
Do I want to sell it to someone?
Yep.
I
Okay.
think some of them try
Do
to do
that.
that.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
try to package their recipe, their branding, and they'll ask for quite a handsome sum of money. Some of them manage to get it, some of them may not be able to. Or do they want to pass on to someone who's just keen to come into the trade and work, for it?
But
Yeah.
So we do have a scheme,
yeah.
succession scheme. We call
Yeah.
it hawker succession scheme that basically help this master passing it down to a disciple,
skill.
his
Yeah, yeah.
secret recipe.
Right.
And we try to find that match so that, even if the hawker is not going to pass it to his children, he may be passed it to someone who wants to take it up as a trade.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have to do that because now our hawker culture is recognized as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. I love the way they phrase that. I was like, wow, it's part of humanity. We cannot mess with it,
You can't mess with Singaporean about your bak chor mee.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. But
That's
so
true.
we have the infrastructure, we want to support people, but what if no one's keen? Because obviously as a hawker parent, you may also be thinking, I don't want my kids to be doing this. I've worked so hard so that you can go to university, so that you don't have to do this, right?
Yeah. So that you
But
can
I
be
think
in an
all of
office
us,
job.
we have different talents, we have different skill sets, we
Yeah.
have different aspirations.
Yeah.
So if we make hawker, one that is easy to enter, very low barrier of entry,
Okay.
someone who is, perhaps work for a few years and find that, doing this is not my cup of tea, even
Yeah.
though I spend time studying.
Okay.
Maybe
Is
that's
it
a
easy
possibility.
for them to come into a hawker trade?
Yeah.
So that they can tender for a store easily, they can start up easily.
Yep.
We
Yeah.
actually have a scheme to incubate them,
Okay.
where if they are new hawker, they can come in with very low cost of investments so that they can get into the trade easier,
Right.
right?
I mean, for hawker centers, I understand that the rentals are fairly, affordable for this. But for coffee shops, much less, right? Because you bid and then it depends on how much the owner has bid.
And then lies the difference, because for coffee shop, we basically do not control who they tenant the stores out to.
That's right.
Whereas in the NEA hawker centers,
Yeah.
we put restrictions.
Okay.
Singaporeans, not more than 2 stores,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
that it limits the demand
Right.
to really people genuinely wants to operate it for themselves,
Yes.
not
yes.
as an employee.
Yeah.
But then again, if I started a hawker stall, I would want to grow it and eventually have a whole bunch of stalls all over the island, right?
We did have people who sell roast duck
Yeah, yeah.
and became very successful.
Yeah.
And really has gone into a roast duck business, central kitchen, roast thousands of ducks
Yeah.
each day and supply to restaurants. But it's a very good start for them as a hawker.
Yeah.
And then once they realize that actually they have the business mind and they have the ability to manage the process, they become successful. We are very happy for them. But while you're doing that, we don't want them to, basically occupy the stores as a chain.
Right.
Yeah. So if you have outgrown, if you want to spend time looking after your, business, your
Right.
new food
Yep.
business, probably give up the store so that someone else
Somebody
will come in.
can
Come
start
in. Yes, that's
at
right.
that level. lah.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, okay. One of the things that has come up in recent times, this idea of trying to keep heritage businesses alive, and that's tricky, right? So you could have a perfumery, for instance, even a bookshop, old bookshop, and the role that government plays in keeping these businesses afloat. So I ask this because in new hawker centers that I
Yeah.
sometimes go to, I don't see the old dishes anymore, like no lor mee or whatever.
Okay.
Lots of mala, bubble tea, this kind of stuff. I mean, that's because tastes are changing too. People have, moved on. They're growing their younger audiences.
Actually, you know why not? Because lor mee is a bit law saw.
I don't know where you get your lor mee from.
It's a long story.
Yeah.
So it's not a challenge though, to keep heritage foods as
Yeah.
part of this whole infrastructure. Give them more grants, maybe even give them rental waivers, etc.
Yeah, but I suppose you see, for Singaporeans, they're always looking for new tastes. They're really keen to explore new flavors, new foods. So while you have some of the older stores, heritage stores, you're not going to eat it every day.
Yeah.
Very few of us do that. We want variety, right?
Yep.
So it's good to have them, evolve as well, the stores.
Yep.
So I'm sure 30 years ago, our nasi lemak didn't taste the way it did today.
Yes.
Right? We
Yeah.
must have improvised along the way as well. Similarly, as I'm sure the lor mee have evolved
Yeah,
with time.
Yep.
So I think our hawker culture is one that's living, alive.
Yep.
It has injection of new ideas, creativity.
Right.
Sometimes it will succeed. We find something new. Sometimes it may not. But we should not constrain it. We should allow it to, find new
So let it
creations
find its own way.
and innovation. And if we like mala,
Yeah.
personally I don't, but my children all love mala.
Yeah.
I also like
You also like? So why not? Why not mala as well? Right?
too many.
Too
Yeah.
many. If it's too many, then the sauce will not get enough
Exactly.
business.
After
right?
a while,
Ah.
somebody else will disappear.
Some will disappear.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then, the store that is selling more conventional taste, customers like you will say, hey, this is what I want. And
Yeah.
I'll support it. The
Yeah.
main thing is about supporting the heritage food business
Yep.
that we like, we love.
That we care for.
you care for,
Yeah.
support it by buying.
Okay.
So it's like if you
Stop
like the
ordering
bookstores,
McDonald's.
No, but then
Yeah.
again, if the heritage food doesn't taste so good,
yeah.
so it's the onus is on the guy to make it taste better so that people
No,
want to buy it
everybody
again,
has to
right?
play their
Yeah.
part,
You
I
can't-
suppose.
Yeah, it's a bit like, some of this tau sa piano, which is
Yeah.
like mung beans
Yes.
cake, right? You'll
Yeah.
say, oh, these are the lovely tastes that I remember taking
Yeah.
it when I was young. But you need to patronize.
Yeah.
You need
Yeah.
to give them business to keep them alive. Yeah.
Yep.
I argue that I'm okay with some of these things just disappearing. I don't feel any loss
He's
because
so unsentimental. It's
Yeah, I
terrible.
mean-
What if your bak chor mee disappears?
Yeah, what if your Hokkien mee disappears?
yeah, so that's why remember I've been telling you I want to use my skills future to learn how to make Hokkien mee. I've been on a
Okay lah,
mission
I'm
to
not going to eat your
I
Hokkien
can
mee, I'll tell
unite
you
it one
first.
day, one day.
Okay, anyway. Okay, maybe to wrap, I wanted to, get your thoughts on just the food culture in general. Okay, so we're a very modern city. Food courts are a huge part of our culture, right?
sure.
Our kids love food courts because they're air conditioned, blah blah blah. So there's choice now. What's your pitch to why we should still have hawker centers, thriving hawker centers in Singapore?
So hawker centers has something unique about them. It doesn't have chains. So you go to any stores, it's owner operated. The owner's
Okay.
there to want to make it special for you.
Yep.
That's why you find distinctiveness. The lor mee here is different from the lor mee 3 stops away.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's different from Old Airport Road and so
Course.
on.
Yeah.
Because each owner has his own recipe.
That's right.
Food courts, on the other hand, not all food courts,
Yeah.
but food courts generally allow chains to operate. So the chains will have all the ingredients done at central
Yeah,
kitchen,
yeah.
chopped the same way,
Yes.
send it down, so that if you go to one food court and another food court,
Tastes
you
the
get
same.
standardized. That's how they can operate multiple stores.
That's right.
By standardizing, right?
That's their business model too,
That's
right?
that's a business model. It's like fast food. You know,
Yeah,
they are very good
yeah.
in doing that.
Yep.
And the person that's operating it is an employee. The employee can come and go. Whereas here, after a while, you will say uncle, and the uncle will remember you and
Of
remember
course.
your order because that's
Yeah.
their relationship.
Exactly.
And that's something that's very unique about Hawker Centre. It is a community gathering place,
right.
not just between customers, but actually between customers and storeholders as well.
Yeah.
Right.
We all know this storeholder, very good in char kway teow, but temper,
Yeah.
don't ask for extra things.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
extra
that's
chili
right.
for you.
That's because he's here all the time. He's not
That's
relying
right,
on the
that's right.
employee,
Okay.
right? So that's the
Yeah.
kind of uniqueness that street food hawkers
Yep.
that we're trying to keep in the hawker center.
Right. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it's great.
yeah,
It's true. I mean,
it's true.
the experience is there. You recognize, they recognize you.
Absolutely.
You know, but the challenge also then becomes, this is pretty much a one-man show. When he's gone, it's
Yeah,
gone, and if
it-
no one
it
takes
goes
over,
with
it's
him.
gone forever. You know,
Yeah.
right?
So sometimes we do hope that he can pass it on to someone.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, we have a succession scheme
Yeah.
that allows the apprentice to take over from the master.
Yeah.
And we are trying to help new hawkers to come in.
Are you optimistic about that?
Frankly, I think that there are not that many new hawkers waiting to get in.
Mm.
Okay.
On the other hand, I also see that, if the prices of coffee shop store rental is going up and up, I'm trying to get more to come over
Yeah.
to the hawker center.
Right.
And we
Ah.
hope to attract some of these, people
To-
that's been operating to start and say, okay, I've had it working for someone.
Yep.
I'm going to start a hawker store myself, be a boss myself. I can dictate how my dishes will taste like,
Right.
the pricing that I like, and
Yeah.
can really make my store work for me
That's
in the
right.
way that I
And build a
rate.
community lah.
Exactly.
So these are all the kids who want to learn cooking, Steve.
Yeah, yeah,
All who
and
wanna
we've
go
seen
to
many
the-
of them who start out with restaurants, then come out on their own, open their own
Oh
stores.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
You know?
if you aspire to have your own F&B restaurant,
Yeah.
this is a low cost way of starting.
That's right.
Test out your recipe, test out your
Yeah.
your business skills
Yep.
before you sink in more and more money to
Into other
starting
things.
a restaurant, because
Yeah.
starting a restaurant costs quite a lot
Yeah.
to get the rental,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
get all your fixtures.
Yep.
This is a very low cost way of getting into the food business.
Okay, that's her pitch. I think it's worthy.
If anything at all, look at the environment we're in.
Yeah.
Compare it to a small, dingy coffee shop with a toilet that is not so great, right? This alone is a reason to come and set up a stall in a nice hawker center.
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
this is the new generation, but in the future, we'll have to keep improving the model so
Yeah.
that it's relevant for the people of that time.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, I mean, I have to agree that I think our hawker food is extremely affordable. So if we should be willing to let it go up in price, I think we have to, because
They
that
work
is
very
one way.
hard. They
you
work
know?
very hard.
They do,
they do.
yeah.
So guys, please support your favorite hawker.
So thanks so much for listening. And of course, any thoughts, comments you have, give us a shout out. Let us know. We do love to hear from you. Otherwise, this is Deep Dive. And a shout out to our team, Junaini Johari, Tiffany Ang, Saya Win, Joanne Chan, and Hanida Amin. That's it for Deep Dive. Bye.
See you guys next week.